You know my story, right? Rise to fame from the pain to glory, right?
I know the fighter's formula. I know it because I lived it. And so I'm not giving people something that I haven't lived. But going through the next process, it's after passionate action, unshakable faith. Because that's just because life is life. And you got to go through life to know how to go through life. Like, even you can have the greatest coaches, you can have the greatest mentors, you can think the best, you can be the wisest, and you still got to go through life. You still have to go through it. And you get better as you go through it because it's that resilience. You learn to adapt faster as you go through life, as you have the experiences. And then the fifth is extreme responsibility. And I call that it respond with your ability. What is your ability? Just because your ability is one way doesn't mean it can't change into something else. Your abilities can always increase. They can always get better.
Yeah, it's been so this place I'm in specifically now is where I grew up as a kid, and I actually have not been back here in like 15 to 20 years. So it's a really cool experience, like going out here into these businesses and stuff, and like places like I hadn't been at since I was a kid, like could barely look over the counter of the register. You know what I mean? And now you're shooting. Yeah,
I know
like
exactly what you mean.
yeah, like yesterday was an independent bookstore in rural Virginia in Winchester, and it was a bookstore my mom used to take me to all the time after I went to theater camp after school. And it was really cool just sitting there talking to this lady about this bookstore that's been around for 50 years and talking about how the bookstores have evolved. And one thing I think you'll find interesting was I had asked her, I said, what do you think the future of an independent bookstore is, with everything with Amazon and everything continuing to plummet where it is? And she said, I think the role of an independent bookstore, especially in a rural community, is to bring the global and national culture to the local community. And I was like, that's really interesting. What do you mean by that? She's like, choosing the right books that are bringing the right diverse cultures and the diverse societies that exist in the world and bringing them in via the independent bookstore. And I thought that was interesting that it went from like her perspective of her business wasn't about a business, it was about a mission, and the mission being culture.
Yeah. No, that's really, really cool. I look at my first intention with being in business was to make money. And it wasn't my main mission. My main mission was to impact people, like truly, truly impact them. And seeing that, watching it blend into what it blended into, and really, really going into like, even with you talking about resilience, right? Like resilience, like I'm going to look up the definition real quick because I looked it up and I'm like, oh my goodness. I think people misunderstand what true resilience is. At least I did. An ability to recover from or adjust easily. An ability to recover from and adjust easily. And I'm looking at it, and I think a lot of people are like, resilience means you just keep going no matter what. Not you adjust, you recover, you adapt, you do the things that you need to do. You go over the wall, under the wall, sideways through the wall, whatever you need to do, you just do whatever you need to do. And as I was going through my process, I came to the realization where business is life and life is business. They go hand in hand. And they never don't go hand in hand. And whenever we're basically voting with how we allow people to treat us all the time, we're voting it. And sometimes people don't think that they're voting it. They're like, well, I have to do this and I have to do that. It's like, well, do you really? Or is that just a conditioning that you believe and a narrative that you've been telling yourself? Because I got into companies where I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that shit. Like, and I'm good. And I'm out. And I'm going over here. But the most beautiful thing about business, true business is pure. It's actually a really pure thing. And you look at Sam Walton from Walmart, he didn't just accidentally build all those businesses. Like, it wasn't like, oops, I didn't know how I did that. And one of the coolest principles he had was treat your employees right. Because when you treat your employees right, it will cause a spillover of them treating the people right. And so I go, oh my goodness, business is the purest form of art. It's actually the purest form of art. And if we don't like the businesses that we have, and I know people don't sometimes like to hear this, they got to look at themselves and say, how am I a part of this? Instead of, oh, well, they need to do that. They're going to do what you're allowing them to do every single time.
I was talking with myself this morning, not with anyone around me. And this
Yeah.
morning I was thinking to myself, and sometimes I kind of create a lot of metaphors in my head and things like that. And it's interesting the way you're talking about, from the way people attract people to their business as well as the way they run their business, whether it be the types of products they choose to put on their shelves or the types of services they offer. And I was comparing in my head. I was trying to find some sort of comparison, because marketing and sales today, true successful marketing and sales that builds a community and builds longevity with the loyalty of the customer, is really the style of Field of Dreams, as opposed to like Big. You know what I mean? Like, I
Mhm.
was trying to think of like 90s comparisons of movies and things like that. And I was like,
Yeah.
Big was the corporate toys that, they make the toy and then they push it out and convince everybody to like it. And then Field
Yeah.
of Dreams was, if you build it, they will come. And I feel like today, the strategy that is bringing the most longevity and ability is the what dreams may, or not what dreams may come, the Field of Dreams. Because in Field of Dreams, you're connecting with people that want to connect with you, and they're making, whether it be a pilgrimage, a literal pilgrimage into like Kansas or wherever that was shot, or it's just like going to your website, going to your social media on a frequency basis to find out more of what you have. I think that instead of forcing ourselves onto people, just worrying about connecting to the people that want to be connected to, it takes a lot of stress off of it. Whereas, pre-COVID, I was in sales and marketing, and you were in your world with sponsors and athletics and everything like that. And it was grab the widest net possible and see who comes in. And I think
Mhm.
that's, that pivot now to be strategic and just be, everybody start being comfortable with themselves and just being like, I am a representative of my business and my business represents me. That's something that is a new change of lifestyle, because we all grew up with your business life and your personal life are separate and don't ever let the two intermix. And now, we're really allowing our businesses to be a part of our life and our persona.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would agree with that. Looking at the development of how people go through the process, and knowing that in everything that we do, we get a choice. But you make a really good point on separating the two, and then going like, well, I don't want to separate the two. And I like using the word yes and or maybe but, because everything is situational and things are always changing and adapting and becoming something different. And I realize like the human mind normally goes to negative before it goes to positive. And I know that my best efforts on anything is always when I go to positive, like when I go to positive first. So I go to positive and say, okay, well, how does this work? And then I started going into like observer. Like I say, I'm an observer. I'm just watching. There is no good. There is no bad. There just is. And as we're seeing the dynamic starting to play out, um, there are, like, I'll give you an example right now. There's some good business people who want to see you win, who want to support you, who want to get you to where you need to go. And there's also some really bad ones who want to like take all your money and leave you on your own and say, "Oh, it was all your fault. You should have taken responsibility." Right? And so it's like navigating the course and figuring out like, okay, who do I trust? Who don't I trust? And the real answer is you trust yourself. Like that's the real answer. Is go within, look within, and ask yourself, okay, am I being discerning? Am I asking the right questions? Did I do my due diligence? Did I become the person? Did I do this strategically? I really love that word strategic, because as we go through our game, it's our job to be as strategic as possible and also help our tribe be as strategic as possible. Like I'm training my kids into that, on how to think through a problem, because my problems and their problems aren't going to be the same problem. When they're my age, they're going to be different. The game's going to change. It's always changing. But if they have the ability to be strategic and look at the bigger, like, okay, what's the bigger picture? What's the end in mind? What am I looking at? Why am I doing this? Why am I taking this action and not taking this action over here?
It's when you take those moments, the hard part is, I think, and this is a recent revelation for me, and I think I was talking to a family member recently about my family's very high energy when we're all together. So we're very like matching high energies. Everybody has to talk the loudest over the other person in order to be
Yeah.
heard, and all that stuff. And as I've gotten a little bit older, and then in certain areas of life recently, we've been having conversations about how like ineffective that is, because where you end up like asking dumb questions when we just need to be a little bit more silent every once in a while and like hear what it is. So it's funny for me, like the way I am on the podcast is what I'm trying to be more in my real life, which is more patient and more not like waiting and listening to people and actually hearing from it. And that's a new thing for me, which is why it's really funny when people say to me, oh, we love the podcast and we love how like empathetic you are and how I am that way. But it's like I'm really learning in real time as I'm doing these episodes to be patient and to really digest and listen. What I'm trying to get at is, as we evolve in life, and we'll go back to that resilience part about the pivot, you know, there's no dramatic changes that need to happen ever in life. It's always a lot of small little pivots that need to happen.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
it's not like I need to change everything about my lifestyle to absorb more and be present. All I actually have to do is pause and do less.
Hmm.
And like, to think of to go back to that resilience and think about how many different ways you can look at it, isn't it weird to think that a part of resilience could actually be slowing down? If you
Yeah.
slow down a
Yeah.
little bit, it's actually a part of resilience.
Yeah. 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 Like,
And it goes to the strategic, it goes to the strategic part of what I was trying to tie to, which is when you pause and when you absorb and be present, I'm finding that my strategy is so much more precise and effective.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, um, because this is real time. Nate, you're effective. That's the answer. That's the answer. And then there's times you're not effective. That's the answer. Like, and there's times when Cliff's effective, and there's times when Cliff isn't effective. And I start looking at it and I go, oh my goodness, this is a game of experience, asking questions, asking yourself the right questions too, telling yourself the right story. I know that if I'm breathing, I have a chance. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know all the other pieces. And sometimes I don't at all. I got into business and I got into it recklessly. I did. And I thought I was being strategic. Like I really like, oh, I got a plan. I did. I had a plan. It just wasn't a good one. And sometimes people are like, well, I don't want to look stupid. It's okay to look stupid. Like it's perfectly fine. It's actually freeing. It's freeing when you can look stupid. But what we do is like, okay, if I don't look stupid, if I look like I have it all together, well, then you're limited because now you haven't ever challenged yourself to go outside of your comfort zone. That's the most important thing to do is go outside of your comfort zone. And one of my superpowers, I tend to try and eat the elephant all at once. Like I just tend to like, I'm gonna eat this thing. I'm gonna destroy this. Oh my God, that was too much. Let me back out. Let me start figuring it out. And I get better and better at doing that because I'm 43-year-old Cliff now. I'm not 19-year-old Cliff. But I appreciated 19-year-old Cliff. I appreciated 10-year-old Cliff. I appreciated 5-year-old Cliff. It was a guy or a kid and a guy doing the best that they could with what they had, with the skills and the tools and the resourcefulness. And my mom really poured resourcefulness into me at a really young age. And that's why I am the way that I am. And there were certain things that I felt I couldn't do, or I wouldn't achieve, and it was all just a shit story. Like, for instance, integrity is important to me. And at one time, I believed, like, well, I can't compete with these guys because they're going to do it in integrous ways, and I'm doing it in integrity. So how do I compete with that? But I absolutely can compete with that because most people love integrity. Actually, everybody loves integrity. That's why the shysters try to prove they're integrous until they prove that they're not after they take your money. But integrity is an important quality. Everybody wants that quality. And so I go, oh, crap, like, that is my superpower. Because I'm going to show up in integrity, and I just have to find my people, my tribe, who are going to point to other people who respect integrity, truly, truly respect it. And integrity, it's a tough, tough thing because integrity is about looking at you. It's easy to look at other people and say they were out of integrity. That is easy to do. But can you look at yourself and say, am I in integrity? Because there's been times where I have been, and there's been times when I haven't been. But when I'm not, I do my best to get back into it. And I don't deny that I wasn't in it either. I don't go like, well, no, I didn't do that. I didn't make that. No, if I'm out of it, you're going to know that I'm out of it because I'm going to tell you. And then I'm going to tell you how I'm going to fix it.
When you kind of branching off a little bit from there, not so much in the integrity realm, but let's kind of in that pressure into fuel aspect.
Mm-hmm.
When you went on a detailed level, like from amateur to pro in 10 months, did you have to basically tunnel vision everything else out in your life to do that, or were you still building other things while you were also on that path and that project?
Man, that's a great question. Moments of tunnel vision, moments of relaxing too. Because if I were to, I'm not dissing any of my coaches right now, but it's just to give a lesson to everybody. I'm a 43-year-old man and my body is still fresh. I still have a fresh body. There's a reason for that. And some of my coaches do not have fresh bodies anymore. They took their bodies to the brink, and I don't want to say they paid for it because it's our choice. It's always our choice. But for me, I like having a I don't call it balance, but I do call it a harmonious life. I want to live life in the way that I want to live life. So in those moments of that few hours, I'm focused, dead focused. I'm on my North Star. But on other times of my life, I'm focused on other things. And I'm just constantly saying, like, okay, what am I being the person that I need to be? Like, I know you're asking about my fighting career, but I'll give you an example from my fighting career transition to business and being a dad. I'm learning new focuses because I like being a high performer, and being a high performer means you do have to focus. But being a high performer to me also means it's always developing into something new. Now I want to be a high performer as a dad. So I'm learning how to do that, learning how to listen to my kids correctly, learning how to ask them the right questions, learning how to be curious at all times. It's easy to tell people what to do. That's easy to do. Oh, eat right, exercise, and sell people stuff. You'll be rich and healthy with a six-pack and abs. It's going to be great. But when they're actually going through it, as you were talking about, in real time, we're literally going through this in real time. It doesn't mean like just because you know it, you don't even know it yet when you know something. You're just aware of it. They're two different things. You know something when you do it so much that you don't even have to think about it anymore. That's knowing it. But being aware of it, well, people are aware of a lot of things, but their lives aren't where they want them to be.
Talk a little bit about, from your perspective as well. Like I talk about this a lot in the podcast, is what you just said there. And I was in some conversations at a family reunion about this too. Like, what do you think are some of those fundamental steps when you go from not being where you want to be to being where you want to be? but breaking that down into the most simplest place, and that, yeah, you don't have to go from zero to working out 7 days a week or zero to starting your own business. But there's some foundational minor steps, I can call them baby steps, that need to happen. And for metaphor purposes, to get you from the couch to the kitchen kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I have a whole process on it. And what I'll do, I'll give a quick rundown of the 6 pieces, and then I will share how I talk about, I break it up and make it even simpler for 3 pieces. But the 6 pieces are get clear, confident, and committed on what you're doing. And the only way you can be committed to something, truly committed to something, is if you have the confidence and you have the clarity. You won't be committed if you don't have those 2 things. It's just not going to happen. You're going to find every excuse in the book. And so confidence, I go, oh, confidence is competence, or the opportunity of competence. If you know you can get competent in something, you'll be confident in it. Then the other piece, the clarity, is, okay, where am I going? What direction am I going? So when I got inside of a cage, I knew what I was doing. I knew what my intentions were. I knew what I was going after. And oftentimes we do go after something, but we go after something thinking, I'll get that, but I have to do this first. And there is some truth in that. But is it the truth? And the truth comes from you going within, and also having coaches and mentors and others who are going to support you through that process. Like, it's not this simple, well, I know what I need to do. You can't know what you need to do. You have to have a team around you to support you in that. Then the next piece is having a game plan. Okay, what are you going to measure? And why are you going to measure it? I believe I customize my process because I've noticed that certain measurements actually serve people and certain measurements do not serve people. And so when you figure out what you're measuring, and if that measurement is actually helping you move forward, then that's what we're going to measure, so that we continue to grow that and we continue to get better at that. And then the next piece is the passionate action. And I say passionate because if you're not doing something that you love, you're not going to do it. And Grant Cardone, and I got love for Grant, like the guy, he's a megastar, great marketer, but he says, you don't have to be passionate about business. And I think that's bullcrap. I think he's wrong. And the reason I say that is you're passionate about something. You're passionate about something. Something's making you even run the business in the first place. And so you gotta hold on to that, because if you don't, you're gonna quit. You're just going to. Grant's a passionate dude. I know he's passionate about a lot of things. I know he's passionate about his family. I know he's passionate about his business. I know he's passionate about a lot of things. So to say like, F passion, like, nah, we need passion. It's a piece of the game. What's up, Uber?
But bam, I'm here, man.
It's the name of the game. So that's our magic genie. We're good.
Gotcha.
Our magic genie popped in. So we were going over how to get to a goal, like how to get that clarity, how to keep going after what you're going after. And I was going over the fighter's formula of how to do that. And the fourth one, and that's the other thing. So we're talking about being able to just be adaptive, right? When you know your stuff so tight, when you know it so well, when Kobe Bryant was stepping to the free throw line and everything was going nuts and it didn't faze him, it actually probably made him better, because I know he was the Black Mamba and he would attack the target. But I know the fighter's formula. I know it because I lived it. And so I'm not giving people something that I haven't lived. But going through the next process, it's after passionate action, unshakable faith. Because that's just because life is life. And you got to go through life to know how to go through life. Like, even you can have the greatest coaches, you can have the greatest mentors, you can think the best, you can be the wisest, and you still got to go through life. You still have to go through it. And you get better as you go through it because it's that resilience. You learn to adapt faster as you go through life, as you have the experiences. And then the fifth is extreme responsibility. And I call that respond with your ability. What is your ability? Just because your ability is one way doesn't mean it can't change into something else. Your abilities can always increase. They can always get better. And then it's self-mastery. I go, when we master ourselves, we can't lose because we know where we should stand. We know what we stand for. We know who we are. We know what we will accept. We know what we won't accept. We're in our zone. We're in our power zone. And so that's kind of a mouthful. And just to simplify it, I go, okay, here are the three simple things that people need. They need their mind in the right place, and that's intellect. What intellect do you need? They need their heart in the right place. That's their passion. What do they love? What don't they love? What do they desire? And they need their skill sets in the right place. And their skill sets are, how resourceful am I? How many resources do I have? Am I using the resources effectively? Am I using them ineffectively? Am I leveraging correctly? And so when we get those three in place, I call that like that's your North Star. That's where your dream is. When you align those three, you get to the dream that you're looking for because you're the person who can get that dream.
Cliff, I don't mean to cut you off, but can I add some fidelity to all of this stuff? I know I'm kind of late in the game, jumping in here, and here comes Urban.
Yeah.
Just wanted to jump in because you use the example of Kobe Bryant, and Kobe Bryant, like one of the greatest players to ever play the game. But that's all we see as the spectator is what's going on in the game. We do not see what goes on behind closed doors in the gym at practice. And you would sit there and say, why is Kobe Bryant practicing free throws? You're a pro. You're the greatest in the game. Why do you need to practice that? No. This goes back to like sharpening your skills. This is having your intellect, but more than just intellect, having the wisdom. Are we allowed to cuss on this, or do we need to be PG-13?
Yeah, Nate goes full raw.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the only way to go. It's not to turn around and bullshit yourself and sit there and say, oh, I know that. I don't need to practice it. No, you need to keep, even though it would be viewed as everybody else as, even like Tom Brady, just throwing the pass, getting to the rhythm, you do this all day long. You still need to keep those points sharp. Cliff, yep. Jab hook, jab hook, jab hook. Even I've been in the cage 5 times already. Guess what? Practice. Jab hook, jab hook, jab hook, hit the shot. You keep on need to drilling these fundamentals because at the end of the day, that's what's going to win you the match. And business is absolutely no different. So if it's a matter of sharpening your skills, just from a communication standpoint, you're always practicing. Cashier at the grocery store, go to Foot Locker to go and buy some shoes for my kids and stuff. Strike up a conversation with the person. Why? They don't know you. Can I gain their interest? Practicing your pitch. If you're raising money, you need to be on that game because when it comes to game day, that's all anybody's ever going to freaking remember.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to your point, and that's where the wisdom comes into all of this, is not BSing yourself into thinking, oh, that's old hat, and having something that's so fundamental being the denominator for failure. I received this little clip on social media that I circulated to a bunch of my friends. And basically what it said in essence is what you need today are the things that you are not doing. And it's like, for crying out loud, it's like you can make a list this long. And this is where a part of the precision, you get it from the fighter's formula. Okay, I need to allocate in my day, maybe not every single day, not every single practice, but I need to put it in there, those fundamentals, all the way across the board, because you can't let those things get rusty, and don't take them for granted, because at the end of the day, BJJ, Nate, do you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu by chance?
I don't, but I was a former wrestler, rugby player, football player, all that stuff. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Pick up BJJ. Like we were doing half guard in some of the classes this week. And like I was telling people, there's nothing sexy or chic about half guard. But at the end of the day, this is jiu-jitsu. This is what's going to win tournament matches. You know, so it's, you know, it's these types of lessons that you need to integrate as a part of your routine, or else you will be, you could have the best intellect in the world, you could have the best program in the world, but because you didn't have the wisdom in order to guide your regimen,
and I
you
think
set yourself up for failure.
There's a crucial piece to what you're saying too, and not just in the sports side as well as with other things. So when I was growing up and wrestling and everything like that, we all were our goals were D1, and that was the goal. So you were, but with that, you also went through. Our coach was very diverse in the way that he approached the philosophy of wrestling. So in order to be D1, you had to go to ballet classes, you had to go to yoga classes, you had to go to. So I don't currently do jiu-jitsu, but we were doing jiu-jitsu. We were doing all these things. Like, we were diverse in how we approach things. We also went and learned how to foresight and through meditation and be able to go through our entire match in our heads. We would sit down in the hallway and everybody would put their heads down and we would do visualizations before our matches. And this is in high school. And, you know, that's one of those things that transcends then for the rest of life. And that exactly is it. So when people say, for me, if they're like, oh, well, you know, you say, they get really nervous when I come up with an idea, because most of the times I follow through with it. If I'm projecting something out loud, I'm saying it to hold myself accountable to the world. So whenever I say something, it's one of those things where that comes from the visualization, because I've gone through the visualizations, I've processed it, I've seen how it all works out, and now I'm going to speak it. And that goes back to exactly what you're talking about. And with that, though, those things would have never come through if I had had a coach in high school who just wanted to teach, you know, top, bottom. You know, for me, it was lateral drops, Greco-Roman, and just wanted to stick in Greco-Roman and only do that, and never expose me to yoga and ballet and all these other things. That then led to a very Renaissance lifestyle that I ended up having and still have to this day, that allows me to have conversations on the fly with people like you and anybody else. Like, I can walk into a room and make 5 friends in a heartbeat. I don't care. I'm in rural Virginia at this moment in the parking lot of a Sheetz, and I can walk inside and make a friend if I wanted to in the next 5 minutes. You know, that's where that all goes back to the sports, and it goes back to having a diverse philosophy and seeing things from multiple angles, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I'm going along with yeah.
No, and that was wisdom on the part of a high school coach. You know, from a sports standpoint, and now you've got the wisdom as an adult applying it to every single aspect of your life. But at the end of the day, it all came down to these very simple fundamentals. Like, as a grown man, it's like there's so many people that the whole concept of visualization and creating that positive mindset on that, I see so many people, they've lost it. You know, they've lost that aspect, and then your life just becomes so negative. And now you are in, like, back into your world, you know, Cliff, where we've talked about it before, where there's guys in the cage, and you can see it in their face. They want the match over.
Yeah.
They want to leave right now. And brother, you got 2 more freaking rounds.
Yeah.
You know, we already know how this is going to end because you were not prepared holistically 360 on this. So no, you know, you, for me at least, you're preaching to the choir on this, and more people need to embrace this holistic approach and get down into the roots and fundamentals. Don't get things rusty. You got to sit there and drill the fundamentals. And again, communication. Like, I see a whole, like, I'm a dad, and I see a whole generation of kids in which that communication aspect is a thing of the past. And it's just like, do simple things. Like, just go up. Here's your money. We're in a fast food place. You order your own meal. Be able to talk to another human being, you know, and then again, if you've got that skill set, you don't even sit there and think about it. But honestly, if I went and just became introverted and stuff, that ability to go and make friends like that would go away in a heartbeat. You know, that's why I love. So like, you know, Nate, if you're ever here in Arizona, look me up. Let's go for lunch. Let's have a conversation. You know, that's how Cliff and I started. Hey,
Yeah.
let's go have lunch. You know, it's one thing to go and be on a keyboard sending messages back and forth. No, let's meet face to face. Let's see the person behind this. Let's look each other in the eye and have a conversation. If we can hold that, then I know what's going on in here.
Exactly. Cliff and I, right before you had hopped on, we were talking about what I'm down here in rural Virginia right now, shooting episodes of our FreeMind Local series, which is our local podcast where we go inside of businesses in Main Street America and basically bring their stories to the forefront, just like we're talking about now. And it's amazing when you talk to people about the different adversities that they faced in their different areas and stuff like that. And the theme's always the same. It doesn't matter if you're starting 1,500 square foot cheese shop in rural Virginia, or if you're starting a $10 billion tech, like monstrosity in San Francisco. It doesn't matter. The same thing is that first step to deciding that you're going to take all the responsibility and all the risk onto yourself. It doesn't matter who you are. Like that risk is very minimal. And I think a lot of people in my audience, especially, it's either a lot of them are senior executives that are entrepreneurs and want to expand their horizons and expand their philosophies and realize they can do more from within a business, or they're entrepreneurs. Or also we have a lot of listeners that I think follow, and they're younger, and I think that they're probably aspiring, or they're in a position where they're trying to take that idea and trying to begin the visualization process of formulating into it a strategy. So talking to people like yourselves is so important for everybody to understand that it doesn't matter what stage you're in. You know, this step is the same, that the risk is the same, and whether the weight of the risk is based on what it is. Because for somebody that might be in rural Virginia to take $1,000 loan out could be the same feeling for some guy in New York to take $1 million loan out. That weight could be the same for those two people. And I think that once people realize that we all are connected by the execution, and that's what makes us different than a lot of other people. And I don't mean that in a better than or less than. I just mean that as a putting that lens on it and realizing that taking that step in execution is a very defining factor to a minority of society.
Yep. I agree. Yep. Absolutely agree.
So talk a little bit about yourself in the bio field and things like that. You know, you're constantly hit with high pressure situations and things. And we've talked a lot about physical and athletics. Transition a little bit into your world, and yours being a very much, you're in a, let's say, I'm going to take a little bit of a liberty here and say you're very much in the present sense of what's going on presently, but you have to very much look to the future on a lot of things you're doing. So how do you is that a safe assessment of you're living in the present
absolutely,
while also very much looking to the future and also making sure the past doesn't sneak back up again?
No, absolutely. And again, it doesn't matter if you're, in my case, developing, as you just said, Nate, developing innovative new therapeutics, or I'm going to open up a donut shop. You know, you've got the immediate things that you need to see, like right now, but you better be operating off of a roadmap into the future. You need to know what next year, 3 years, 5 years from now is going to look like, because you need to grow and evolve, and you can't be reactionary. And what I mean by that is I can't get to that 2.5 year mark and realize at that point in time there's a gaping hole in my process. You need to be fortuitive and know that, okay, I didn't need that now, but now we're at year one. What do I need to start implementing as a part of this? Not necessarily to fill that hole, but to at least plant the seed in that, because at this point in time, I need a sapling. And if I'm being reactionary at year 2.5 and just planting the seed, then I've fallen behind, you know. And again, too, it just, there is no difference in the concepts and concerns. Maybe the biggest difference between my world and the donut shop example is like the revenue aspect, because biotech, we're pre-revenue until you do a deal. And a lot of people have a hard time of wrapping their heads around, well, how do you turn around and you stay in business? Well, this is where investment comes into play. That's our revenue, is bringing in investment in order to be able to keep everything going. But the only way to get investment is to show that I've got this roadmap and we've built out all of these metrics on the roadmap and we're filling these gaps and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And we're not going, oh, shit, I needed to plant that seed a year and a half ago. No, the sapling's right there. And oh, by the way, for year 5, here's our little bag of seeds. We're already ready to go. And so, but it's the same thing too. It's like if you're going to go and start with one store, you're here in Arizona, Cliff. You've seen Bosa Donuts.
Oh yeah,
Bosa Donuts. It's like one little shop on Arizona in across from not a Whole Foods, but a food city. You know, that's where it started, and now they're all over the place. Do you think that just happened by chance? No, there was a plan that was put into place, and it took off there. You know, and you know, you can't always tell, like, you know, with the market, you know, recessions, stuff like that is always going to blindside you. But if you're planting the right seeds, what you have are the proper friends. Okay, and that's what I view our investors on. That's strategic partners with other companies. I view them as friends, and I'm upfront with it. Let's not sit there and bitch about percentage points. I want to know that I have your back and you have mine. It's just like, would you have picked a coach, Cliff, to get you ready for a fight if all he sat there and talked about was how much of your purse he was going to take?
Well, I'll tell you just right there, that is so critical, not just with the other person, but with yourself.
Yep.
And this is why I talk about integrity being so important, because if you can't have integrity with yourself, well, who can you have it with?
Sure.
So yeah, 100%. You are 100% on that one, Urban. Like the people that, it's a scary effing thing to go into that cage as it is alone.
I'm sure.
You're basically putting yourself on display for the world to judge you. That's what it feels like.
Yep.
And so when you have a coach, you got to have a coach who's like, they got your back.
Yep.
Because it's heavy.
And then it's not just coaches too. It's like with a startup entrepreneur, it's just, you've got a family, and having that chit chat with your wife saying, hey, guess what? You already said I can do this, but I need some startup capital. I need to take a loan out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Are we ready for this? Because the moment I sign that signature, this is real, you know, and thank God my wife has my back, has allowed for these patents, you know, to come into play, you know. So, you know, it's those things. If you need this holistic thing, you know, it's one of my biggest gripes are these people who sit there and say, oh, I'm self-made. F you. F you. You are such a freaking liar. It's not like you were like locked yourself in bubble wrap in the closet and then all of this success just appeared. You surrounded yourself with quality people and you don't even have enough integrity to acknowledge them. F you.
It's Bubble Boy, about Jake Gyllenhaal emerging from the Bubble Boy costume. You know what I mean? Like nothing, he's untouched and sterile and ready for the world. You know?
Yeah, that's
I talk a lot on my podcast about. I'm 39 years old, so I grew up. I started this business in 2008. Clifford's heard my story. I've been from the big hits all the way to the sheriff showing up at the door to serve papers to kick me out of the house. And in that battle and in that run, it's one of those things that you talk a lot about adversity and resilience. We were talking about in the beginning of the episode, and really trying to talk about how resilience doesn't have to also be some major thing, but sustainable resilience actually comes from pivoting and self-inventory and analysis, not from just bullishly continuing to run forward. And I think a lot of times, like
you know, the nuts and bolts is, you know, that, you know, shitty things happening in your life, so many people just view it as a shitty thing. But there, it happens for a reason. And have you guys ever like seen like the master sword makers make a katana? And that, to me, like a katana,
Yeah,
the
those
Japanese
are
samurai sword, to me, that is the epitome of swordsmanship. And it starts off with this little block of steel, you know? And how do you get it to this precise sharpened blade that is ultimately dictated by how many now pig carcasses it can cut in a single blow? And the way they do that is they take that piece of steel, they heat it up, take it out, pound the crap out of it, add carbon to it, add imperfections into it, fold it over, pound it, do it all over again. Heat it up, pound it, put it in cold water, wash, rinse, repeat. And I view a successful person as no different. You have to go through those cycles in which you take those absolute beatings in order to bring out that perfection and execution, which includes imperfection. You know, you have to introduce those imperfections into it. Why? Because ultimately that's what makes you strong. So, that's my little philosophical approach on all of that stuff. And again, getting served papers to get kicked out of your house. Yeah. There would be nothing fun about that. But the simple fact is, Nate, you are still here.
Oh yeah. And none of that story is a pity party by any means. It's actually something to really show that, every single scenario in life is an opportunity to move forward. Yep. And I see what's happening above me with the sky. I think that hurricane's whipping back over here now. So that's probably what's happening with the Wi-Fi here at the moment. But yeah, everything's an opportunity to move forward, an opportunity to learn. And I think what I was trying to get to, I think too, is that if you're, I had a period during that time as well where I was pretty egotistical. So I was very successful. Mm-hmm. And something you don't know, but Clifford in the crowd knows, is I was also heavily drinking. I'm sober almost 2 years, coming up on 2 years. Mm-hmm. And I think that one of the things I try to instill in people as well is there's always opportunities to hit the pause button. And that resilience sometimes can actually, we think of resilience as move, go, go, go. But actually, there's resilience in the pause and the resilience in the assessment of the situation. And I think that the more we can make people realize, just stopping and shutting down just because something didn't work out or something traumatic happened, and then staying in that moment, I want to help more people get out of that moment and continue to move forward, and realizing that the pause can be a moment of energy moving forward.
Yep. No, absolutely. Absolutely agree. And, I find it absolutely amazing when you sit down and you talk to people who are successful. There's always some trauma that they have to work through. Like, you just shared with you shared with me, at least the audience already knew this, you had an issue with drinking. Guess what? So did I. I used to go through two of those big 1.75s, Captain Morgan. I used to go through two of those a week, and that was after my first wife had passed away. And, I went through all of this downward spiral, but I had to reconcile with me as a part of that. I had a hard time just even looking in the mirror. Like, it didn't affect my job. I was still doing great at my job and everything, and that nobody would have known, but I had these demons inside with me. And it was a lesson that I learned from my kids. We talk about it now, and they call it the dark times, in which Dad would sit there and he would drink, and I would just sit there with them, and I wouldn't talk or anything, but they could just tell I was sad. And it was one night where I was drinking, passed out or fell asleep on the couch. I couldn't tell you which, but I woke up the next morning with a blanket on me. And that was one of my daughters put a blanket on me and put themselves to bed. And that, for me, that was the wake-up call that, Urban, I need to rectify myself in the mirror. And most people, whether they recognize it or not, they need to get this straightened out first, or else true success. And again, let's take money out of the equation. Money's only a part of success. Success includes relationship with your family, relationship with your friends, being able to go and do stuff in which at the end of the day, damn, not only do I love everybody around me, I love me too. And if you can't sit there and do that, if there's always that loathing, it's going to keep you from your full potential. Cliff, if you were stepping into the ring and you looked in the mirror beforehand and the only thing you thought was, man, do I fucking suck, what is your probability of winning that match?
For me, not very high. For others, they're kind of crazy, but I get where you're going with it. But I 100% agree. Here's where I'm going to get a little philosophical with it, though. Even if they do win, did they really win? That's the question. Even if they do get their hand raised, are they really winning? Do they really feel like a winner? No, I don't think so.
Yep. Yeah. Are your kids proud of you? Is your wife ready to embrace you when you come back? Or is she just thinking of you as, oh, here's the purse, show me the cheddar?
Yeah.
You know, you need to get all of this stuff in order so that, you know, at least for me, in continuing on the philosophical, and I think, Cliff, you know me well enough to know that everything I do, there is that philosophical.
Those are the people that I hang around. Because Nate's that way too. I'm like, oh, I'm starting to get this game better and better the more I play it. Like, I get to choose who I want to hang around with and who I don't want to.
No, but no, that's absolutely true. Like, even Ray Lewis, he talks about this. You know, you show me your people, show me your flock, I will show you your future.
Oh yeah.
What are you surrounding yourself with? And that's where a lot of these people fail. They got their arm raised, yeah, but then they step out of the ring. And it's just like, how are these other individuals enriching your life?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because that's what ultimately creates true success. And if you hate yourself, you're going to surround yourself with other people who hate themselves.
Yep.
You know, love you.
Like attracts like.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time today. I think this could be another conversation we can have at another time as well.
I'll be on time next time.
Yeah. I appreciate you guys taking the time, and just thank you guys so much. And I look forward to cutting this up into these just excellent quotes, excellent words of wisdom for people. And I'll shoot over email to you guys the clips and the animations and things like that as well. So
nice. I appreciate you, Nate.
Love it. Nate,
yeah, thank you, Urban. Appreciate you.
Cliff, you and I need to get together, sir.
And also, this is what I want you guys to do. Yes, we do, Urban. I appreciate me too. And I'm doing this because I think people need to do that with themselves a lot more. I don't think we do it enough. And yeah, I think men and women both need to do it a lot more, because we're a split society right now.
Yeah, people need to. It's like, let's scrub all of the differences, because everybody has an underlying story. I don't give a fuck who you are, where you come from. Everybody has it. Let's put that on the level of, we are all human beings.
Yep.
Let's strip all of this away. Let's get right with us, get right with everybody around us, and everybody gets raised by that. So,
amen.
Amen. God bless everybody.
Hey, thanks.
I appreciate you guys.
Enjoy the rest. Take care.
Bye-bye. Have a great
If you're
one.
an aspiring entrepreneur or one that's looking to expand, contact the FreeMind Network today, and we'll help you scale. We'll help you start. We're going to be there for you, in your corner.
You know my story, right? Rise to fame, from the pain to glory, right?